Ladies and gentlemen, my name is of course Adam Clery. You are watching the 442 FA Cup roundup video, and Manchester United, this Manchester United, have just gone and got possibly their biggest victory in years. And despite all the evidence to the contrary this season, it is only fair to say that in this match, Erik Ten Hag was a genius. Alright, okay, hello there chums, how's it going? Just want to quickly say before we start that I was dreading doing this video when it incredibly unfairly leaked in the run-up to this game that Man United were going to bin Ten Hag regardless of the outcome. I was like, oh great, now I've got to give him one more kicking on his way out. How fun. But that is not what we are going to be doing today, is it? Because for the first time in a really big game this season, he got it absolutely spot on and his team executed a brilliant plan almost to perfection. And that plan was thus, right? The team sheets came out and they had Man United in this 4-3-3 that we've pretty much seen them in all season. But from the first few minutes, it was immediately apparent that's not what the system was going to be at all. They were actually set up in this really deep, really compact sort of 4-2-4 or 4-2-2, whatever you want to call it. And Ten Hag's game plan was fairly simple. They were going to sacrifice certain areas of the pitch to completely stop City in areas they deemed to be more important. Specifically, the very central part of their own half. And throughout that first half, they looked really good for doing this. You can see here in just the opening exchanges, City want to be playing that ball through the middle, but Man United have completely shut it down. They've got no options in that area. But the thing is, everybody knows by now that that's how you play against City. You shut off that central area. You don't let them get on the ball in the areas where they can really hurt you. Like, that's not what was clever about what Ten Hag did. Because City come up against this kind of problem all the time, and they've got baked-in solutions in their starting 11 for what to do when plan A isn't working. But what Ten Hag did in this match was he correctly predicted how Man City would try and adapt to their game plan and built in solutions to the Man United side to take advantage of that. So how did it work? Well, first of all, this was not really Man City's shape either. They were listed as a 4-2-3-1 with Foden on the left, but if we look at his heat map from the game, he had no interest in being in this wide space. Part of the way this system works is he drifts all the way into the centre to become a second number 10 with Kevin De Bruyne. Silva stays out on that side to sort of stretch this channel, which can occasionally allow De Bruyne or Haaland to drop into it, and then 𝗕𝗓𝗓, he pushes all the way up, and that gives them this attacking front five. So Man United's game plan, and the reason they didn't start with a centre forward, was it allowed Bruno Fernandes and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 to just sit on both Rodri and Kovacic. Because Man City are going to want to play through the centre, they need to get the ball to these two to make things happen, so they shut that option off entirely. And they were both very disciplined with this, but not passive, because they did occasionally try and shut down one of the centre-backs when they had the ball, but they only did so if they could leave their actual player in what's known as their sort of cover shadow or shadow cover to shut them off as a pass. And if they didn't get the ball back straight away, rather than chasing it around, they would just drop back to where they were meant to be. And you can see that very quickly here. Like, Fernandes thinks he's got a chance of getting the ball back in an incredibly advantageous position to do so, but once that goes, rather than just getting a rush of blood and carrying on that press, he just takes a second, gets his breath back, and goes back to where he's meant to be. Now, what Man City will often try and do in these situations is they give Foden and De Bruyne the license to then sort of float away from this congested central area to get on the ball. Like, Foden can go back out to the left. De Bruyne, as we've said, will try and get into that half space that Silva is leaving for them, but because there was no centre forward, they had options. They had extra men to play with. And that meant that both Amrabat and Mainoo could stick to them like curry stains on a white top. It didn't matter where they went laterally across the pitch, they would follow them around. And if they went into sort of these areas where nobody was sort of marking them, they would pass them off to Garnacho and Rashford. And the execution of this on an individual level by Man United was just so, like, disciplined. You can see Rashford here, having been keeping an eye on one of them, passing him back off to Mainoo when he comes into the central area again. But again, just like Man City come up against this sort of low block all the time, they are used to having their best players man-marked, and they have a solution in this system designed to deal with that. And that solution tends to be that Bernardo Silva, who I'll just get here, will just completely vacate that right-hand side and come and join in the three here. And that not only gives them much better passing angles in this sort of build-up area of the pitch, but it also means that they both outnumber these two players 3-2, and then the midfield 5-4. And you don't really need me to tell you that one of the reasons Man City win back-to-back Premier League titles is because this is incredibly effective. But again, because it is something they regularly do, it's something that Ten Hag predicted and had a plan for. Now, if we look at the average positions of this Man United team in the game, you can see these sort of 6 players all nicely disciplined through the centre of the pitch. But I want you to look at Rashford and Garnacho. And you got to remember, this shows you the average positions, right? Not where they specifically found themselves most often, but where all their work averages out on the pitch. And bear in mind, they were trying to provide all the width. They were trying to get in behind City down the flanks. The fact that they come out so narrow in that average is because they were tucking all the way in into this central area to get that numbers game back. And I mean, you can count, can't you? So you can see straight away this 3v2 advantage for Man City is now a 4v3 advantage for Man United. And the whole story of that first half, and honestly I could show you 10 separate clips all showing you the same thing here, was Man City having the ball in this central area, but having no way through Manchester United. And if we just stop one of them here, for example, and redirect what our eyes are looking at, you will see that the consequence of being so compact and difficult to break down in the middle means that the wide spaces are about as well covered as the Old Trafford roof. And I mean, let's face it, leaving 𝗕𝗓𝗓 on the left and Kyle Walker here on the right, 1v1 with Man United's fullbacks, is a pretty big gamble, but Ten Hag put his trust in both 𝗈𝗏𝗓 and 𝗬𝗶𝗏𝗧𝗏. And it largely paid off, because while the pair of them are excellent 1v1 defenders, both going forward and back the way, they're not the kind of players who are likely to make something happen all of their own. They're not going to go past the opposition defender. And you got to remember as well, even if they try to do that, that's a big risk for City, because if they lose the ball, there's so much space behind them, and they know the players they're supposed to be marking are in there somewhere. So that was the game plan in so much as stopping Man City winning this game. And just to show you how effective it was, this is the pass map for Kevin De Bruyne across the whole match, right? You can just see he's nowhere near able to get on the ball as much as he would like to. And even when he does, he's not able to pass it forward or do anything sort of effective with it. And actually, I was watching this in the pub, and when Guardiola subbed De Bruyne off, like around the hour, just before the hour, there was like a noise of like shock and surprise went around. People couldn't believe he was taking him off. But I'll just show you every pass De Bruyne made in that second half. And I've not done this wrong. I've not made a mistake here. Between the second half starting and De Bruyne getting subbed off, he completed one pass. One pass. In fact, I'll just show you Foden's as well, because he was probably Man City's best player, looked the most likely to make something happen. But even him, getting on the ball more, still wasn't doing anything great with it. There's a few here that are going into a dangerous area, but look how many of them are sideways, or in some cases even just backwards. Such was the man-marking job being done on him. When he was receiving the ball, it was normally facing the opposite way, and because he couldn't get turned, he just had to give it back to whoever gave it to him in the first place. And the thing is, right, this is just how you stop Man City from winning the FA Cup final, right? But we're not here to talk about Man City not winning the FA Cup final. We're here to talk about Man United winning it, and winning it well. And this is why, like, honestly, I'm quite happy to throw the genius label around in this video, because you can have all the answers to the questions Man City are going to ask you. Like, that's all well and good, but you've still got to use that and turn it into a way to have a threat of your own. And this visibly very defensive structure from Man United was actually designed to give them the best possible chance going the other way as well. This is from literally the opening seconds of the match. Like, Man United are able to turn the ball over to sloppy pass, and just look how quickly Marcus Rashford knows he's gonna get into that space behind Kyle Walker. And it happened a couple of times in the opening exchanges. Rashford getting into that space behind Walker, Man United trying to find him with a killer ball over the top. It's just that Kyle Walker's whole thing is that he's this brilliant recovery 1v1 defender, so Man United didn't get anything from it. However, on the other side of the pitch, it was a slightly different story. Man United, with their shape working very well, turn the ball over, and 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 lays the ball off to 𝗈𝗏𝗏. And if we just stop it right here, you will see the first thing he does is look up to see if that pass into Garnacho behind the defense is on. There is not one single thought in his head about returning that ball to 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 or turning around and giving it to the defender or the goalkeeper. Plan A1 is to get it anywhere you can and see if you can hit this space. And he does. And yes, of course, what follows is a catastrophic defensive mistake from Manchester City, but it comes about specifically because this is what Man United are trying to do. It's a goal born out of chaos, but a specific type of chaos they were looking to create. 𝗕𝗓𝗓's got to run back towards his own goal, which he didn't really want to do. And because there's so much room behind, 𝗕𝗓𝗓 is sort of forced to do something. He's got to come out and address it somehow, and they just get in a bit of a muddle and they get the first goal. Like, they wanted that to happen specifically. It's not like luck. And you saw it again with the offside goal. Man United get the ball back. They look up to see if that ball to 𝗕𝗓𝗓 is on. It is, and while yes, it was ultimately given offside, just look at how much space him and Rashford have behind both the City fullbacks. Look at the distance between them. They were forcing Man City to commit both of these players to these wide areas because it was the only place on the pitch there was any space to do anything. And then once they turned the ball over, they were coming out of this central area where they were stopping the through passes, going back out wide and becoming the main attacking threat. And the second goal is rightly going to be remembered for that beautiful pass from Bruno Fernandes and the fact that 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗓 became the first teenager to score in an FA Cup final since 𝗕𝗓𝗓 had done it 10 minutes earlier. But once again, it is this play that made it happen. Man United get the ball back, and we'll just highlight where Walker and Gvardiol are, and wouldn't you know it, they've pushed way up beyond the other central defenders. When it gets out to Rashford, this ball across the pitch on his weaker foot is just not on in a million years, but because 𝗕𝗓𝗓 has that room, it's worth a try, isn't it? And he executes it perfectly. And from there, they're up the other end of the pitch. And I did weirdly see a couple of commentators being like, oh, City were so static in their defending here, they were just totally motionless. But if you just look at this bit here, it's actually a 4v3 counter-attack that's just about to enter the box. Like, these two can't do anything. They've got their men, but John Stones turns his head, sees he's got two, and the only sensible thing you can do in that situation is not overcommit to either of them either way. Just Man United have expertly manufactured that situation. And Kyle Walker, as quick as he is coming from too high up the pitch to get back to 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗓 in time, which gives him the chance to finish. And finish he does. And obviously the second half was a different story entirely. Guardiola did address this quite well with his changes, specifically making sure it was Jeremy Doku in this position instead of Gvardiol, because for all the will in the world, he's not going to go past Wan-Bissaka, he's not going to make things happen on his own. But Jeremy Doku is exactly that guy. Like, if that is where a team is leaving you the space, that is the man you want attacking it. And even though they lost the game, that was pretty effective. Like, you saw that play out several times in the second half. They couldn't leave Doku one-on-one, so it was pulling other players out of this central block, which opened up a bit more room, allowed City to make better chances. They had the goal, obviously. Then they had two that they absolutely should have put away. I think Haaland hit the stanchion between the post and the bar. Like, on another day, those changes may have brought this game back, but the fact is, Man United had done all the hard work in the first half. They just needed to hang on. In fact, no, it's not right to say they did all the hard work in the first half. From a system point of view, they'd done all the hard work, but in the second half, it became about individual hard work. Because once they'd sort of lost the advantage of being perfectly set up to stop City, then you're relying on the players individually to do their jobs, to be accountable, to make up for that shortfall. And that's just something we haven't seen from Man United this season. Now, whether that's because of the injuries or whatever you want to put it down to, it just hasn't been there. But yesterday, across the entire 11, it was. Like, individual mistakes have been such a huge thing for Man United, and there just weren't any in this second half. Every single player did their job. Every single player contributed to the cause. They all collectively kept forcing Manchester City out of the areas they wanted to be in and to do things they didn't want to do. Like, when a team is compact and low blocking you, crossing suddenly becomes a big thing, because the most creative thing you can do in the space being offered. Just look at City's successful crosses in that second half. It's rubbish. I mean, they're in the box, sure, but you can't score from any of the positions they're getting the ball here. And just one final graphical overlay from City's perspective here, right? Because inevitably, he's now going to become part of the post-mortem of all this, right? So every touch, not pass, every touch of the ball Erling Haaland had in the whole game. There's like three in the box. 2 of them are shots, and all the rest of them are just congregated all the way out here, where Man United will not give a shit about him. And so good, man for man, were Manchester United, that it becomes really difficult to stop picking out individuals and saying, oh, look what they did, and wasn't this a great game? Like, Amrabat, I thought was fantastic. Mainoo just is on another level. Both the wide players were so good. The centre-back pairing, I think only like the 3rd or 4th time they've been able to use that pairing this season, was brilliant. But the one player I do want to pick out here is Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because this is where Man City were targeting Manchester United. This is where they thought they were going to get some joy. And they did. It's where the goal came from. But if you just look at all of his defensive contribution across this game, tackles, blocks, interceptions, recoveries, it was almost a perfect defensive fullback performance in a cup final. And that is what it takes to beat a team as good as Manchester City in a cup final. Like, you have to set up in the perfect way to give you a chance of going out and getting something. Then you need to trust that your players will go out and get you something. And they did. They went out and got this specifically, and it's incredibly shiny. And now, of course, it does beg the question about Erik Ten Hag's suitability to be Manchester United manager. Like, if this was the first game under a new reign at the club, you'd be like, wow, this is night and day from how they were playing across the last 2 years. So it's whether or not a performance this complete and this good, with this much buy-in from your squad, you know, negates how, in Ten Hag's own words, crap the entire season has been. And we will, obviously, when they make a decision either way, do a full video about that. But while I would say this is just an unbelievable performance, Manchester United aren't a team whose overall strategy across the season will see them having 27% of the ball. But in the here and now, in this one game, which is all that matters when it's a cup final, it was almost faultless. It was excellent. It was as well as I have seen them play in a very long time. And I am happy, genuinely delighted, after all the kickings I've had to give him on this channel, to say that Erik Ten Hag, this mate, was genius. So, that is it for the domestic season in this His Majesty's Barclays Premier League. If you have enjoyed the video, please do. Man United fans, just celebrate in the comments. I haven't even got a good question for you. Just tell me how good that felt. I'll enjoy reading all of that. And of course, we will have way more Man United content over the summer and next season. So please do subscribe to us here on FourFourTwo if you don't want to miss any of that. And of course, other clubs as well. Maybe just watching this as a casual bystander. Your club will be covered almost certainly. Unless it's like, I don't know, Carlisle. In the meantime, though, you can grab me across all of the socials at Adam Clery, Clery. 442s are in the corner of the video. The latest issue of the magazine, which I'm going to catch first time, ta-da, is the Euros issue. You can get that now from all good retailers and the crap ones. We don't discriminate. And yes, that's it. Congratulations to Manchester United and in particular to Erik Ten Hag. What a day that was for you. Goodbye.